the supernatural realm. We're going to hear from him. That story's coming up next. Stay with us. Strange phenomena of supernatural activity in his new book, Playing with Fire, a modern investigation into demons, exorcism, and ghosts. In that book, he explores shocking stories of deliverance through the lens of faith. He tells CBN News' The Prayer Link it's a subject the church cannot ignore and must be equipped to handle.
Why do you think the world and the church sometimes tends to avoid or even ignore the topic of demons and spiritual warfare?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a topic that is spoken about more in Scripture, right? Especially in the New Testament, and talked about less in churches. And I think, now, I don't want to say that's every church, right? Because lots of churches do a wonderful job dealing with this and talking about it. But I think we know overall that this is a topic that's avoided. And we did a survey for Playing with Fire where we went out and talked to church leaders. So these were volunteers and pastors, and we asked them, do you believe that demons exist? Of course, the vast majority said yes. Do you believe that demons are impacting culture? The vast majority said absolutely. And then we asked the question, are pastors in churches talking enough about this? And 78% said no. And so it was a really fascinating moment to, again, look at this issue and say, we are not speaking about it. So to answer the question, I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons why. It's a very difficult topic. It feels strange for people to address. And I know there are lots of stories I encountered in writing Playing with Fire of people who have gone for help. They've gone to their church and they've said, I have something going on, I can't explain it, and they're not given any assistance or help. And so that's a troubling piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
That really leads me to my next question, Billy. Do you think the average pastor feels equipped to take on these issues?
I think the average pastor probably feels as though they know a lot about it after reading it. I think there's, for some people, perhaps a disconnect between the real world practice of what you do, right? What goes into deliverance or exorcism or however you want to frame the language and how do you perform that? Again, lots of pastors know how to do it. When we asked the question, there were almost 20% of the churches were the leaders we spoke with who said, listen, we have a deliverance ministry at our church, but that's a pretty small percentage. I feel like every pastor should be equipped to deal with this so that people aren't dancing around going to other denominations, going to other places, because realistically, outside of the charismatic world, the only place people really know where to go would be the Catholic Church. They have a very top-down way of handling this. And so I think it's hard to answer because we know our churches are very split, for non-denominational churches. But I would say that if there's an issue that Hollywood is talking more about than we are, and of course they're not doing it the right way, but they're talking more about it, then that's convicting since it's a very big biblical issue.
I get to this question, Billy. You know it's coming. Halloween. It remains a controversial topic within the church. Do you think it should be celebrated, or do you think it's something that may open up people to demonic influence, as you just talked about?
Well, I think it's really important to look at what you're talking about here, right? We're talking about witches who are looking at October. This is a time of year where evil is given great focus and where Halloween itself, the roots of Halloween are all about trying to knock down the barrier between the living and the dead, right? That's what it was all about. And so you flash forward into the Halloween we have now, I think people have to do what they feel most convicted on. And so for a lot of people, there are a lot of Christians who have alternative Halloween celebrations, right? Churches have harvest festivals, and there's all sorts of other events that go on. In a sense, that's still observing Halloween. It's doing it in a different way. There are families that still trick or treat in their community, but they don't allow their kids to engage in the evils of the holiday when it comes to costumes and other events. And so, I think people have to do what makes them feel comfortable within their faith, pray about it. But I think what we really need to do, beyond anything else, because I know this is one of the most controversial questions, right, Halloween, is that we need to make sure that we are leading with helping our kids understand what Halloween really is and that these are real things. This is, the stories that I encountered in writing this book were so stirring and really unbelievable, even though in my mind I knew all of this was true. Obviously, as a Christian, really coming around to saying, listen, this is really, you need to avoid these things, you need to not partake in them, and let's find a healthy way, whether that's a harvest festival, whether that's trick-or-treating in a very contained way, to observe it and turn it on its head. Don't allow it to be what the roots of it really are. Make it something else.
You can see the entire interview with Billy Hallowell and much more this evening on the prayer link. It begins at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, and of course you can find that on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, the president talking about his faith and how he believes God looked out for him and the First Lady during their recent diagnosis with COVID-19. Stay with us.